Hey everybody, this is Mark Borstein, CTO at Tremolo Security, and we are going to have some fun with OpenShift. Thanks for joining this last minute. If you want to say hello, then please feel free to say hi in the chat. So we are going to be doing a rollout of OpenUnison with OpenShift. So this is a little different than what you might be used to with OpenUnison if you've ever used it before. Instead of focusing on authentication, we're going to focus on namespace as a service and onboarding. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's share my screen. And entire screen. And this is the screen we want. And there we go. Awesome. So let's go ahead and start off. I actually have, I'm logged into OpenShift over here. And this is kind of a typical cluster. There's not really anything special going on here. I deployed this using, I think it used to be called Code Ready Containers. Now it's known as OpenShift on, OpenShift Local, I think. Deploys real quick. I like to use it for testing and development. So, so what we want to do is we want to take this OpenShift cluster and we want to make it so that our users can get access without having to get us as the cluster admins involved, without having to have us like onboard users, add users to groups. You know, the interesting thing about OpenShift versus, I'll make this a little bit bigger, versus, generic Kubernetes is that OpenShift has users, right? Like if you've read the book, if you've read Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide, or you've listened to me talk, I'll say a lot. OpenShift doesn't have any user, or rather, Kubernetes doesn't have users. It's got to be a certain, but OpenShift does. OpenShift has users. OpenShift has groups, and so there's an API to manage them. And the thing is that when you go to onboard users, you need something that's going to interact with that API. Now, you can do some stuff just in time these days. We'll talk about where the limitations of that are. But the nice thing is OpenUnison knows how to talk to these APIs. So it actually makes it really easy to go ahead and integrate. So we are going to integrate our EntraID with OpenShift, and we're going to use OpenUnison, obviously. And we're going to do this in two ways. First, we're going to configure OpenUnison to authenticate to EntraID running on OpenShift. And we're going to configure it to use what's called internal groups. So this is where OpenUnison uses its own groups inside the database to actually manage that access. And then then what we're going to do is we're going to update the integration so that we're using what's called external groups. It's really hybrid in this case, where we will have internal groups, but we're also going to leverage EntraID's built-in groups. So that'll make it so that we can have access provision directly without having to do anything special. Users won't have to request access. So it gives you the best of both worlds. So in order to do that, we're going to start off with integrating, deploying OpenUnison and integrating it with EntraID. So I'm going to come over here and let's go to our docs. And we're going to go over to identity providers. And here's EntraID. So now something that's important to understand about EntraID that's a little bit different than most identity providers is that when you get a list of groups from EntraID, those groups are these funny UUIDs. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So the idea here is that, you get these funny UUIDs and, that's what you need to put into your RBAC bindings. That's not really super helpful. You want to have a name because RBAC is just really difficult to do without names. And so you need a way to be able to translate that. So the good news is that OpenUnison will do that for you. So you might be saying, well, I have OpenShift, I have Keycloak. Why don't I just use Keycloak? The only way for Keycloak to do that mapping is statically. So you've either got to write some custom code to do that mapping for you, or you need to go ahead and manually map each group name inside of your client config. You don't want to do that. So OpenUnison goes ahead and does that mapping for you automatically. We are going to go into EntraID, and let's go ahead and set up a client. So we're going to go into EntraID, and we're going to go to app registrations. We're going to do a new registration. We're going to call this OpenShift. And we only care about our specific directory, so we're not going to change that. And this is a web. So let's go over here. I already have my host name. So this is what our host name is going to be. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So if you dive into the docs, you'll see that our callback is going to be /auth OIDC. I'll make this a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to see. All right, so we have our web, our endpoint. So let's go ahead and do that. And then the next thing we need to do is let's go ahead and grab our client credentials. So that's the next thing to do, right? Yes. So we're going to add a client secret. And we're going to do a new client secret and demo. And for this, we really don't care how long it lives because this demo isn't going to live that long anyway. So I'm going to come back here and do vtemp OIDC and just paste that right in. Okay, so let's see what next the docs say. So next, the docs say we need to go ahead and update our token config. So let's go over to token configuration. We're going to add optional claim, ID. And what are the claims that we want? We want email, family name, given name, and preferred username. So we're going to do email, family name, given name, and preferred username. All righty. I think that's all of them. Is that all of them? Email profile, or no, we're still up here. Email, family name, given name, UPN. That's the other one that we want. Thought we wanted UPN. All right, so let's go ahead and add that. We're going to add the permissions. And we're also going to add group claim. We're going to do all groups. All right. That all looks good. All right, let's come back here. And then we need to enable the APIs. So let's go over to API permissions. And we're going to add a permission, Microsoft Graph, application permissions. And what do we want to add? We want to add user read all, and group read all, and group member read all. All right, so let's go to user. And we want user read all. And let's go to group. Group read all and group member read all. So let's go ahead and add those permissions. And then we want to grant consent for everything. Because this is an enterprise. We don't want to have to go through that whole consent thing. That would be a little silly. So we've got that set up. And okay, so far so good. And now we're going to go ahead and configure OpenUnison. So we need to get the client ID. So the client ID is going to be right here. It's going to be what's called the application ID. So let's come over here. Now I'm currently configured for Active Directory. So let's go ahead and switch my configuration over to OIDC. All right, set my client ID. And then I also am going to need my issuer. So endpoints. And there's going to be a issuer. I think this is it here. No. Interesting. All right, we'll just grab that. And so this is the issuer. We're going to get rid of this stuff. And I don't remember. Does it want the slash? Yes, it does want the slash. And, you know, it's actually pretty easy to check that. So we'll do that. JQ-R, I think, dot issuer, like that. There we go. So, all right, it doesn't actually want the slash. So we'll take off the slash. I don't think it'll matter. Now, we are going to put user in ID token is true. A little bit different than Octo, which is what these original instructions are built for. And we're going to change groups. Instead of being called groups, we're going to change that to roles. All right. Oh, and we're going to remove groups from the scopes. All right, that's everything. And finally, because we want to do, we want to be able to do a lookup for our groups, we're going to go ahead and get the tenant ID. So let's close this out. And we want our directory tenant ID. So I'll copy that. What's this called? This is tenant underscore ID. Tenant underscore ID. There we go. All right. So we've got that all set up. I'm going to go ahead and create a temp SMTP. This password doesn't really matter because I don't have a real email system set up with this. And DB is, oops. Start 1, 2, 3. All right. Cool. So now we are in a position to be able to deploy. So get nodes. All right, we're ready to go. So I like to do this first without the additional Helm chart just to make my life a little bit easier, helps it be a little easier to debug in case something went wrong. So let's go ahead and do that first. So OU control, and I've got everything already set up here. Although I'm going to do a quick Helm repo update, make sure I got everything up to date. And then instead of doing everything with my development, do that, S temp OIDC. And then that. Now we could have custom charts here, or if we want to pin charts. I'm going to be very, very lazy. Now, of course, you wanted to use Argo CD. You could do that too, and that failed immediately, and I can't see what's going on because of that thing. All right. Oh, that's why. That should be a -B. And away we go. So we are deploying OpenUnison now. So this will take a few minutes. And I guess while that's going, let's see. Is anybody on the live stream? Want to say hi? We got a couple of folks watching. If you're out there while we're waiting for things to run, please feel free to say hello. Let me give a little show as to what it'll look like once we get this all up and running. So if I go to Applications, OpenShift, and this is where we talk about kind of the changes we had to make. If you're used to or you've ever deployed OpenUnison, you might be used to using the dashboard. Well, OpenShift doesn't really need a dashboard, right? It's got its own UI, so you don't have to worry about that. So we disable that. You don't really need the token service, right? Because you've got a token service built into OpenShift, so you don't need OpenUnison to generate tokens for you. We will get into SSO for OpenShift and why that might be a good route to go, and then find and create a badge. And then once everything's done, this is what it's going to look like, right? You've got a place where you can go ahead and create new namespaces and launch your developers. Let's see where we are here. So Orchestra's installed. We're waiting for it to go. So like if we come over here and let's go to workloads, pods, and let's go to the OpenUnison namespace. So we can see that ActiveMQ is up and running. We've got a running Orchestra, and it looks like we're wrapping up here. We're deploying the backend HTML, the thing that holds our HTML container. So looks like things are going, and we're done, right? Like that's it. That's everything. So let's go ahead and log in and see if the demo gods are going to smile on me. So I'm going to go ahead and let's plug this in. I immediately get redirected over. So I'm going to sign in as Matt Mosley. And I'm going to sign in with my M. Mosley credential. And apparently that is not the right password. Lovely. Isn't that interesting? All right. I'm going to sign in as Mark Borstein. How about that? I'm going to have to make this complicated. Sign in with a different account. All right. I'm going to sign in with, here we go. Mark Borstein. And then make sure it's got the right password. No thanks. All right. So I'm signed in. And you can see off the bat, I have this crazy login ID. I should have administrator access. That's interesting. Why don't I have admin access? Let's go ahead, try logging out, and let's log back in. And I don't have admin access. So that's going to make this a little bit interesting. But the nice thing is I do have. Oh, I know why. Okay. So this is, I jumped the gun here a little bit. Yeah. So what happened was, I configured myself already with both internal and external access. So if I take a look here, if I go to my OpenUnison config, I've got both, internal and external enabled. So let's go ahead and redo this, but with the right group. So I'm going to come into Entra and let's find a group. All groups, And let's use this group, Kate's administrator. So this is going to be our overall, our cluster admin group. And then let's also do, and let's actually check users, because let's make sure I'm a member. I am not a member, so let's go ahead and add myself as a member. Oh, add member. Mark Borstein. It's me. All right. And then let's go ahead and find another group. Do I have an OU admins group? I don't. So let's go ahead and create an OU admins group. And oops. OU admins. Now let's go ahead and add me as a member. Oops. All right. Mark Borstein. Didn't I add myself as a member? Did I not do that? Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so I'm a member. So I'm a member of both groups. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is our OU admins group. So this is the ability to have any user that's a member of this group can approve access to things, whereas any member that's a member of the cluster admin group can manage cluster, right? Be a cluster admin. So I've got that. Let's go ahead and go back to our instructions over here. And we're going to go back to Entra, because there's one more step that we need to do. We've got, oops. I want to go to identity providers. Not applications, identity providers, Entra. All right. So we've got Entra all set up. We've got OIDC set up. That's working. What am I missing here? There should be here we go. So we've got to set OpenUnison include auth chain. I don't think, do I have this in here? No, I don't. So if we go to OpenUnison, we're going to do include auth chain. And we're going to include Azure load groups. So this is going to come in through there. And we're going to go ahead and redeploy everything. But in this case, well, do we have to redeploy everything? Yes, because I updated the group membership. So we don't need this anymore. But we do need, I think it's -O to do additional Helm charts. And we're going to do orchestra. Oops. Azure AD equals this. All right. And that should just go. Let's see. Nope. I did this wrong. Repo. Oh, you know what? I did do this wrong. OU control, install, auth, portal, help. So -O I actually think is the operator. I want to do additional Let's pre-run. Additional Helm charts -R. Okay, that's why I did this wrong. All right, so we've got our operators already deployed. So now it's going ahead and re-rolling out Orchestra. Now you don't need to necessarily rerun the entire thing every time you make a change. Because I made a change to the permissions, I think I needed to. But a lot of times you can just rerun that specific Helm chart, and anything north of the orchestra chart, so the orchestra login portal chart or this custom chart, you can actually run hot. Like you can just do the update and then log in. Like everything's automagic. You don't have to worry about having to you don't have to worry about having to restart OpenUnison to make most configuration changes. So we're just kind of chugging along. If we take a look here, what's going on at OpenShift. So we've got our new orchestra running. So this one will hopefully, no, that's the operator. Oh, okay, we're done. So everything's deployed. Let's see if it worked. So I'm going to go ahead and let's log in. And we're going to log in as me again. Still no thanks. So that worked. So if I look at my groups, we'll see here that I am a local deployment administrator. I am a external administrator, right? And I'm a user. So this means I can manage access to the groups. I can go ahead and manage access to different namespaces and projects, and I can approve that access and be a cluster admin all at the same time. So once we had SSO set up, we don't have SSO set up quite yet, but if we take a look here and we go to users, you can see there's my ID, and we go over to groups, and we can see here that there's this group that got created, and there's that one user, me, right? So that's pretty cool. So far we haven't done anything super magical, right? Like we've deployed into OpenUnison, but this is where things really get interesting. So I'm going to come back over to OpenUnison, and I'm going to create a new namespace, and I'm going to do it to my local here, and we're going to call this test demo. And let's see, is this going to look up Kate's? Okay, why isn't this? Oh, I bet I know why. I think I have to do an extra step in here. If I go to namespace as a service, and I go to NAS models, choosing, so I got external groups. Did I not? Using Active Directory, choosing Okta groups. I could have sworn I did this for Entra. Maybe I didn't. I'm going to be really annoyed with myself if I didn't. Oh, that's a joy of a live stream, right? All right, let's see what we got here. I'm going to go ahead and what's the easiest way to figure this out? I think I'll go up here. Do have Helm charts open. So Helm charts, cluster management, templates, applications, new project, Entra. All right, OIDC type. That's what I forgot to do. I need to add this to the doc. So the issue here is that in OIDC, I need to tell OpenUnison that it is in fact Entra. So let's go go ahead and do that. Type is EntraID. There we go. Now I'm not going to go ahead and relaunch everything. This is all hot. So I'm going to go ahead and just deploy the cluster management chart. Deployment using OU control. So you can do that. I'm actually just going to go ahead and do this manually. So if I do a Helm list on the OpenUnison namespace, so I'll do a Helm upgrade, cluster management, Tremolo, cluster management, and OpenUnison. F is going to be OpenShift dash OpenUnison.yaml. Right? Yeah. So let's go ahead and do that. And if everything went the way I hope, I'm going to come back here to my new namespace. And now you can see that there's a little drop down, and there we go. There's our groups coming from Azure AD. So I'm going to go ahead and let's create a new group. Groups. All groups. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and create, we need two groups. We need an admin group and we need a viewer group. This is the default. You can go ahead and create all the groups that you want for different roles. So for instance, we've got users and customers that create a support role that lets you do view plus delete pods. So that's part of their first level of support where, if somebody's having issues with a pod and they look at the logs and they're like, we're just going to delete it because, sometimes SRE just means simply restart everything. So there are different roles. You can customize all of this. So we're going to create two groups. I'm going to create one group. We're going to call this test demo admins. I'm going to create another group and we're going to call this test demo viewers. Don't worry about membership here in a moment. So I'm going to come back over here to groups, show you there's nothing up my sleeve. User management groups. Now those groups only exist in Azure AD right now. They do not exist in Entra. They don't exist in OpenShift. So I'm back here and we're going to do this. And then we're going to call this test demo. And we're going to call this test demo admin. So there's the group we just created. Test demo viewers. Demo. Now, the nice thing about this is you've got the picker, which always makes it easier. But also, it's validating against that. So if you put in the wrong group name, it's going to error out. So again, you're cutting down on the amount of potential problems. So let's go ahead and hit save. So I would have just gotten an email if this were hooked up to a real email system that says, hey, Mark, you've got somebody who's requesting a new namespace. So now I've got an open approval. You can customize the approvals. Maybe you don't want to go directly to an admin. Maybe you want it to go to a line of business owner, whatever, all fully customizable. Act on the request. You can see what's being asked for, and we're going to say for demo. Now I'll point out here that let's go over to, if we do a quick reload here, you'll see that we haven't provisioned that yet. So let's go ahead and say okay and approve the request. And we're off to the races. So now we can see that we've already created new groups and really cool. We've already added our requester as a member to the internal group. We'll see why that's important here in a moment. So I'm already a member of that group, right? So let's go ahead and also take a look. If we go to workloads, we'll see that there is now a test demo namespace. Now, a whole heck of a lot in there. That's fine. That's not really the point. So let's go ahead and show what this onboarding process now looks like, where we've automated based on group membership. So I'm going to create a user. Well, I have a user. So let's do test demo admins. And we're going to add a user, members, and all members. So we're going to add a member. I'm going to add Jen Jackson to the party here. All right. And the thing with this is it sometimes takes a hot minute. There we go. Azure AD is not always real time. So I'm now going to go ahead and let's log out of OpenUnison and log back in. And this time I'm going to log in as Ms. Jackson. There we go. There we go. So I'm logged in as Ms. Jackson. And we can see that I am a member of the deployment administrators because I was already a member of one of the groups. But then I'm also a admin for my local deployment. So let's remove me from cluster admins because I don't want to be a cluster admin right now. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. And let's go to our cluster admins group. Oops. Groups. And then all groups. Let's go to Kate's administrator. Members. So we're going to see that my user, J Jackson, is a member. I'm going to go ahead and remove. Now, again, remember, Entra is not real time. Sometimes it takes a hot minute. And y'all don't need to know how many credits I got remaining. So let's log in again. Now you can see I'm only a member of the test demo namespace. So that means once we set up SSO, when I go to log in, that's the only namespace I'm going to see. And that's going to happen in near real time. So like if I come over here and let's look at our groups again. So I was in the Kate's cluster, Kate's administrator external. And we can see now that the only user is my Matt Mosley user, right? So let's also come here and let's look at the Kate's namespace demo external. So TGSO. So that's my ID. So, so far the provisioning side is working great. So now the next question is how do we get SSO working? That's pretty straightforward, thankfully. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, I already have Keycloak set up, right? The fun with Keycloak in this particular scenario is that, like I said before, Keycloak does not have dynamic mapping. So with Keycloak, let's say you were to have that set up with your EntraID, and it's going to send you the groups as those weird strings, right? The UUIDs. It's also going to limit the number of groups you get. It's like 10 or 20 or whatever. And then you have to go back and look it up. So the nice thing about using OpenUnison here is that you can keep your Keycloak set up there, but just inject OpenUnison in the middle. and let OpenUnison provision for you just in time and let it be transparent. Now, we're not going to do that here. Maybe we'll do that on another stream, but I want to keep things simple. So let's just go ahead and set up OpenUnison to be the identity provider for OpenShift. So let's come back here to our docs. And let's go to Applications, OpenShift. And so let's come down here to configuring SSO. So the first thing we got to do is we got to create a secret. We need to create this secret inside of the OpenUnison namespace. And this is going to be the secret that we use for OpenID Connect. Now, the value for this OIDC secret for anybody who speaks base 64 natively is secret. Please don't do this in production. Like, I'm going to do it here because I'm super lazy, but make up a real secret, right? So I'm going to go ahead, come here, okay, create F. So I created my secret. And then I need to create a trust. So this is how OpenUnison knows to trust OpenShift, right? OpenShift is a client. We want we want to trust OpenShift to be able to authenticate our users. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Now I'm cheating here a little bit because I created this before to write the docs, and because I use code-ready containers natively, everything's set up. But the really important thing here is that your callback. So this is a bit of documentation, and we refer to it in the docs here, where OpenShift is to go ahead and or where the redirect URLs. If this is wrong, you're not going to be able to authenticate. So let's go ahead and create that. And again, because OpenUnison is can't type today, because OpenUnison is hot reload, because OpenUnison itself is an operator. So we don't have to restart anything. This all just gets magically picked up. And then finally, I want to create a badge. Like I like having badges on my front page. So this is a portal URL. You would just update it. I went ahead and base 64 encoded the logo for OpenShift. And so let's go ahead and create that. So the portal URL was created. So if I come over here, I do a quick refresh. See, now I got this badge. But the last thing we need to do is now we need to tell OpenShift, hey, let's log people in using OpenUnison. That's the last step we got to do. So let's go to my docs, because my docs say how to do this. All right. So we're going to follow the instructions, basically. So I'm going to do this using the GUI. Let's be real. You should probably do it using the API, but hey, ClickOps, it's what's for dinner sometimes. All right. So cluster settings, configuration, and no, we're not going to go to auth. We're going to go to OAuth. Here we go. And, out of the box, it's just got local HTTP password. This is, the equivalent of the master certificate if you're working with generic Kubernetes. And we're going to add a OpenID Connect provider. So let's go back to our trust. Our client ID is OpenShift. Oops. Like I said, our client secret that we had base 64 was secret. And we need an issuer. So I'm going to do curl v or insecure HTTPS OU dot like that. There we go. So this is going to be our, was it 9812? All right, so that's our metadata document. So let's grab the issuer. So yes, even though it's the Kate's identity provider, it's still going to be our identity provider for OpenUnison, or for excuse me, for OpenShift. And then let's grab the CA. Now, technically, we've automated the deployment so that it works with OpenShift's built-in HA proxy. Like you notice, we didn't set up any certificates or anything, right? Like that was all done magically for us. But let's go ahead and grab that just in case. Right? Yeah. So let's go ahead and grab the CA certificate. Here it is. Let's do that. And that's good. So let's go ahead, add that. So that's been added. And now we got to hang out for a minute, because here's the thing is everything in OpenShift is an operator, right? You've got operators for every single aspect of what's going on. So what's happening right now is that OpenShift has gone ahead and noticed, hey, we've got a new authentication config, and we're going to go ahead and load that up. So that takes a hot second. So like if we go to workloads, pods, and I think it's authentication, and we can see here 2:58 p.m. So let's see, has it reloaded it yet? Let's go to the logs. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go ahead and log out. Yeah, so we're still waiting here for console. So yeah, we're still waiting for the console to or the authentication operator to catch up here. All right, let's make sure that it didn't break anything. Let's go to workloads, pods, and let's go to the authentication operator. And let's see here. Let's see. I don't see anything about let's check out authentication again. Let's see, sometimes it just takes a few minutes. Log out, console. All right, let's see. Did I forget a step somewhere? So we go to administration, cluster settings, configuration, and OAuth. So it's in there. Let's see. So it accepted it. Workloads, pods, 349. Okay, yeah, it restarted. So let's go ahead and log out. There we go. So OpenID, I should have renamed it to OpenUnison, but it didn't work. So let's see why this didn't work. Probably because user management or administration. Cluster settings, right? You know, if everything worked right the first time, you wouldn't believe this is a live stream, right? See here. That's why. Because that needs to be, no, client ID is OpenShift, so we'll call this OpenUnison. That's correct. That actually all looks right. I wonder why. Let's see here. Let's take a look at the logs. Do OpenID. Unauthorized clients. Oh, the redirect is wrong. That's why. You can see here. Oh. I don't know why this isn't letting me highlight anything. Here we go. Invalid redirect. So let's take a look here at why the redirect is wrong. So kget trusts and OpenUnison. Kedit trust OpenShift and OpenUnison. I guess is that's why, because I named it OpenID. So let's see here what happens. Has this reloaded? It's still OpenID. So this is going to take a minute. I'm going to just cheat here for the sake of getting this done quickly. Let's try this again. There we go. So we're logged in. And let's skip the tour. So I'm logged in as Jay Jackson. You can see the only thing I have access to is test demo. So we've now gone through and logged in as Jay Jackson, and I'm able to log in to what I have access to. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do one more trick. So we've done the provisioning from EntraID. Now let's show what it's like to do internal provisioning. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to log out. And I'm going to remove from over here. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to groups, test demo admins. So I'm going to remove Ms. Jackson. Right? So let's go ahead and log out. I'm going to log back in. And I'm no longer an administrator, right? That just magically happened because it saw that I wasn't a member of that group anymore. So I'm going to request access. And now I can click on administrators. We can see that it loads up the administrators, or it loads up the namespaces that are available. Not all namespaces. You have to have a special annotation on there. We can add the annotation if we're in a brown field. And it'll automatically add all the right groups. So for demo, so I'm going to request this access. Now I'm not an administrator right now, so I can't do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as the administrator. Still don't want that. So we can see I've got an open approval here. Going to act on the request and approve it. Now here's the cool part. So I'm going to go over to reports, audit reports, and let's look at the completed approvals. So when the auditors come around, they say, "Hey, who approved this stuff?" You can come back and hand them a report. You can even export to Excel if you want, because what auditor doesn't love Excel, right? Um, go to the single user change log. Or we can go change log for period. That's a little bit easier. And it'll show you all of the changes that have been going on, right? So this makes it real easy to be able to track who had access to what and why. So I'm going to log out. I'm going to log back in as Jay Jackson. And now I'm back to being a test demo administrator. So this makes it real easy for you to be able to do things where if you need to quickly provide access to someone and you don't have the ability to add them to that EntraID group quickly, you also have the ability to manage your own groups. And finally, just to show you, there's nothing up my sleeve. I'm going to log in. So this is actually going to fail, right? So yeah, that failed because of an unauthorized client, because we had changed it. So we're going to change it back. And we're going to say, I think it'll probably be all uppercase. See what happens. Could not create user. That's interesting. Why couldn't the user was already there? Let's try this again just to see what happens. So it called the user. Interesting. Might need to go back and check the internal group mapping. All right, so I'm going to go to log out, and I'm going to log back in. And oh, that's new. They just changed this? Like in the last 10 seconds? That was interesting. So let's go to OpenShift. All right, so something seems to have broken. Let's see, yeah. Interesting. So I must have broken something. But we're running up on an hour here, so I don't want to take up too much more time. Anyway, so that is the whole thing, right? We were able to log in. Oh, I know what happened. Yeah, no, I'm an administrator. Huh? Something seems to. I'll have to take a look. But yeah, everything's done now. So I'm gonna go ahead and log out, log back in. Yeah, I seem to have broken something. Oh wait, no, I'm an administrator. So okay, no, I'm still an admin, right? Administration. Yeah, okay. So I'm still an admin. Oh, maybe I'm not. Yeah, no, I am. User management, roles, role bindings, administrator, going as developer. I'll have to figure out what's going on here. But anyway, thanks for joining, and hope you had a blast learning about how OpenShift and OpenUnison can work together. Have a great rest of your day. No, I want to end the stream.